Being underestimated was something I had grown accustomed to. But that didn't make it hurt any less, especially coming from family. My name is Alina Chin, and this is the story of how my mother-in-law's attempt to humiliate me backfired in the most spectacular way possible. I met Michael Thompson 5 years ago at a charity gala. He was charming, successful, and came from old money. Very old money. His mother, Victoria Thompson, made sure everyone knew about their family's prestigious banking legacy. The Thompsons have been in finance since the 1900s, and Victoria never let anyone forget it. When Michael and I got married 3 years ago, Victoria's disapproval was palpable. A small business owner, she'd said during our first meeting, examining me like I was a curious specimen. How quaint. It didn't matter that my tech consulting firm was profitable, or that I had an MBA from Stanford. To Victoria, I was merely playing at business while living off her son's success. If only she knew the truth. The thing about old money is that it often breeds complacency. While Victoria was busy planning charity galas and looking down her nose at new money, I was quietly building an empire. My small consulting firm was just the tip of the iceberg, a front for my real business interests. Through a series of holding companies and smart investments, I had acquired a controlling interest in Midwest Banking Group, one of the largest regional banks in the country. The same bank that, ironically, handled most of the Thompson family's business dealings. Not even Michael knew the full extent of my success. It wasn't about keeping secrets from my husband, it was about proving something to myself. After watching my immigrant parents struggle and sacrifice everything for my education, I had promised myself I would succeed on my own terms. The catalyst for everything changing came during our weekly family dinner at the Thompson estate. Victoria had outdone herself that evening, turning what should have been a simple family meal into an elaborate showcase of wealth. Crystal glasses sparkled under custom chandeliers, and the table settings probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. "Elena, dear," Victoria called out as the first course was served, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "How is your little consultation business doing? Still helping small companies with their computers?" I took a sip of wine, noticing how she deliberately oversimplified my work. "It's going well, Victoria. We've expanded our client base significantly this year." "Oh?" She raised a perfectly manicured eyebrow. "Michael mentioned you were working such long hours. It must be difficult, struggling to keep a small business afloat in today's economy." Michael squeezed my hand under the table, a silent apology for his mother's behavior. But Victoria was just warming up. "You know, dear, there's no shame in admitting when you're in over your head. The Thompson family has extensive connections in the business world. We could easily find you a suitable position at one of the major banks. Something more stable." The table fell silent. Even Gerald, Victoria's usually passive husband, looked uncomfortable. But Victoria continued, seemingly oblivious to the tension she was creating. "After all, we can't have Michael supporting you forever. The Thompson name carries certain expectations. Perhaps it's time to stop playing entrepreneur and consider a real career." I felt Michael tense beside me, ready to defend my honor. But I placed a gentle hand on his arm. This was my battle to fight. "Thank you for your concern, Victoria," I replied calmly, "but I'm quite comfortable with my current path." Victoria's smile turned predatory. "Comfort is the enemy of progress, dear. Why, just look at our family's success. The Thompson Banking Group has been a cornerstone of this city's financial district for generations. Gerald just secured a merger that will expand our influence even further." She paused, examining her perfectly polished nails. "Of course, we're still waiting on the loan approval from Midwest Banking Group. But that's merely a formality. Our reputation speaks for itself." I nearly choked on my wine. So that's what this was about. Victoria wasn't just being her usual condescending self. She was flexing her family's influence before what she assumed would be another business triumph. If only she knew who really controlled the bank she was so confident would rubber stamp her loan. Speaking of which, Gerald interjected, finally finding his voice, "We should hear back about the loan tomorrow. $50 million to finance the merger. It's the largest deal we've attempted in years." Victoria beamed with pride. "And once it's approved, we'll finally be able to acquire that dreadful little community bank that's been competing with us." Progress marches on, doesn't it, Elena dear? The small fish must eventually make way for the bigger ones. The irony was almost too perfect. The dreadful little community bank Victoria was so eager to devour was actually one of my first acquisitions, a stepping stone in building my own financial empire. I had kept it independent specifically because it served local businesses that the bigger banks ignored. Indeed, Victoria, I replied, maintaining my composure. Progress is inevitable, though sometimes it comes from unexpected directions. She missed my meaning entirely, too wrapped up in her own sense of superiority. As the dinner continued, Victoria regaled us with stories of Thompson family triumphs, each tale carefully crafted to remind me of my supposed inadequacy. Later that night, as Michael and I drove home, he apologized profusely for his mother's behavior. "I'm so sorry, Elena. She's just set in her ways. I should have said something." I squeezed his hand. "It's okay, love. Sometimes it's better to let people underestimate you. They reveal more about themselves that way." He smiled, but I could see the worry in his eyes. "Still, the way she talked about your business. She has no idea how successful you really are." No, I agreed, thinking about the email I would be sending to my board of directors at Midwest Banking Group first thing in the morning. But she's about to find out. The next 3 days were a masterclass in karmic justice. First, the Thompson Banking Group's loan application was denied. Not just denied, but thoroughly rejected with a detailed explanation of why the proposed merger was deemed too risky and potentially harmful to local businesses. Victoria's reaction was nuclear. She stormed into every high-level banking connection she had, throwing around the Thompson name like it was a magical key that would unlock any door. But for once, her influence fell flat. What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had spent years quietly building a reputation in the banking industry under my Chinese name, Li Wai Chen. The name my grandmother had given me, the name that connected me to my heritage. While Victoria was dismissing me as Michael's struggling entrepreneur wife, I was making billion-dollar decisions that shaped the region's financial landscape. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. Just as Victoria was reaching the peak of her frustration, I received an invitation to speak at the Regional Banking Association's annual conference as the keynote speaker. The invitation was addressed to Lei Wai Chen, CEO of Midwest Banking Group. I knew the moment was coming, the moment when my two worlds would collide, when Victoria Thompson would finally realize just who she had been looking down on all these years. But I had no idea it would unfold quite so dramatically. The Regional Banking Association's annual conference was held at the Grand Meridian Hotel, the most prestigious venue in the city. As I stood backstage, adjusting my designer suit, Armani, not that Victoria would ever guess, I could hear the murmur of the crowd through the curtain. The Thompson family was out there, of course. Victoria had made sure they secured front-row seats, eager to network with banking executives who might overturn Midwest's loan rejection. She had no idea she was about to get much more than a networking opportunity. And now, the announcer's voice boomed through the hall. "Please welcome our keynote speaker." Under her leadership, Midwest Banking Group has become one of the most innovative and successful financial institutions in the region. Please give a warm welcome to CEO Lei Wai Chen. I stepped onto the stage, my heels clicking confidently against the polished wood. The spotlight felt warm on my face as I approached the podium, but not as warm as the flush of satisfaction I felt seeing Victoria's expression. Her face went through a remarkable transformation: confusion, shock, disbelief, and finally horror, all in a span of about 3 seconds. "Thank you for that wonderful introduction," I began, speaking in the same calm, measured tone I'd used at countless family dinners. "Some of you know me as Li Wai Chen. Others," I paused, looking directly at Victoria, "might know me as Elena Thompson." The whispers started immediately. Victoria's perfectly coiffed head whipped around as she saw other banking executives nodding in recognition. Yes, they knew who I was. They'd been working with me, or rather with Lei Wai Chen, for years. "Today, I want to talk about the future of banking," I continued, "about how traditional institutions must adapt to serve our changing communities, about the importance of maintaining local relationships while growing globally." For the next 45 minutes, I delivered a presentation that outlined my vision for modern banking, subtly highlighting how outdated institutions like Thompson Banking Group were becoming. Every point was backed by data, every argument supported by market research. It was, if I do say so myself, a masterclass in professional devastation. Victoria sat there, rigid as a statue, as I systematically dismantled everything she thought she knew about banking, about me, about her family's supposedly untouchable position in the financial world. Michael, seated beside her, was grinning proudly. He'd known some of my success, though even he was learning the full scope of my influence today. After the speech, during the reception, Victoria made a beeline for me. Her face was composed, but I could see the storm brewing behind her eyes. "How dare you?" she hissed under her breath. "How long have you been orchestrating this charade?" I took a sip of champagne, enjoying the moment. "Charade, Victoria? I've been completely honest about who I am. You just never bothered to look past your own assumptions. You deliberately deceived us. All those dinners, listening to my advice about your small business while you were actually running one of the largest banking groups in the region." I finished for her. "Yes, I was. Just like I was actually evaluating your loan application, which, by the way, was rejected on its merits, not out of spite." Victoria's face flushed. "You had no right to reject that loan. The Thompson name means nothing to my board of directors." I cut in smoothly. "Your merger proposal was predatory, Victoria. You wanted to absorb a community bank that serves local businesses, the same businesses you've been calling small fish for years. Did you really think I would allow that?" "Allow?" she sputtered. "Who do you think you are?" "I'm exactly who I've always been," I replied. "The daughter of immigrants who taught me the value of hard work. A business owner who built something from nothing. And now the CEO who just denied your attempt to destroy a vital community institution." Michael appeared at my side, placing a supportive hand on my back. "Mother," he said quietly, "I think it's time we all had a real conversation." Victoria looked between us, realization dawning. "You knew?" she accused her son. "You knew all along?" "I knew Elena was successful," he replied. "I knew she was brilliant and hardworking, and that you never gave her a chance. I didn't know the full extent of her achievements because, unlike some people, she doesn't feel the need to broadcast her success." The next hour was interesting, to say the least. We moved to a private room where, over very expensive whiskey, I finally laid out the truth. How I'd built my consulting firm into a technology powerhouse. How I'd leveraged that success to begin acquiring banks. How I'd maintained my Chinese name and business both to honor my heritage and to avoid exactly the kind of prejudice Victoria had shown me. "Your loan application," I explained, pulling out a tablet and bringing up the relevant documents, "wasn't rejected because of who you are. It was rejected because your numbers don't work. Your merger plan would have eliminated vital services for small businesses. Your risk assessment was optimistic at best, delusional at worst." I showed her the analysis, page by page. To my surprise, Gerald, who had been quiet until now, began asking intelligent questions. He actually seemed interested in understanding where they had gone wrong. Victoria, however, was still processing her new reality. "All this time," she muttered, "at every dinner, every event, I was trying to be a good daughter-in-law," I said softly. "I endured your condescension, your thinly veiled insults, your constant reminders of my supposed inadequacy. Not because I needed your approval, but because I love your son, and because I believed that someday he might see past your own prejudices." Michael squeezed my hand. Victoria looked at our joined hands, then at my face, seeing me, really seeing me, perhaps for the first time. "What happens now?" she asked, and I heard the real question beneath. What would I do with my power over their family legacy? "Now," I said, pulling out another document, "we have a choice. I've had my team prepare an alternative merger proposal. One that would allow Thompson Banking Group to partner with Midwest, maintaining your family's legacy while modernizing your approach. You'd have to make changes, significant ones, but you wouldn't lose everything." Gerald reached for the document immediately. Victoria watched him read, her expression unreadable. "Why would you help us?" she finally asked. "After everything." "Because that's what family does," I replied simply. "And like it or not, Victoria, we are family." The changes didn't happen overnight. Victoria didn't suddenly become a warm, accepting mother-in-law. But something shifted that day. Perhaps it was respect, grudging though it might be. Perhaps it was the realization that her son had chosen better than she'd known. 6 months later, the merger was completed. The right way. Thompson Banking Group became a subsidiary of Midwest, maintaining its historic name but operating under new, more community-focused principles. Gerald, freed from Victoria's rigid adherence to tradition, turned out to be an excellent partner in modernizing their operations. And Victoria? Well, she still hosts those elaborate family dinners. But now, when she introduces me to her society friends, she doesn't mention my small consulting business. Instead, she says, with a hint of pride she can't quite hide, "This is my daughter-in-law, Elena Chin Thompson, CEO of Midwest Banking Group." Sometimes, at those dinners, I catch her watching me with a thoughtful expression. I think she's finally understanding what I knew all along. Success isn't about names or traditions or maintaining appearances. It's about vision, hard work, and the courage to be underestimated. Last week, she actually asked my advice about a new community lending program she wants to start. And you know what? It's not a bad idea. Turns out, when you stop looking down on people, you might actually learn something from them. Michael and I are expecting our first child now. A daughter. Victoria has already started talking about her future role in the family business. But this time, when she talks about legacy, she's not just talking about the Thompson name. She's talking about building something meaningful, something that serves more than just our family's pride. And that, more than any revenge or revelation, is the real victory. Because sometimes the best way to change someone's mind isn't to prove them wrong. It's to show them a better way to be right. As for me, I keep both my names. Elena Thompson signs the holiday cards, while Lei Wai Chen signs the corporate documents. Both are equally true, equally powerful. Both are me. The small consulting firm that Victoria once mocked, I still run it personally, not because I need to, but because it reminds me of where I started. Every time I help a small business owner realize their dreams, I think about my parents, about their sacrifice and determination. Success is sweetest when you can share it. And sometimes, late at night in my office overlooking the city, I look at the photos on my desk, my parents at my graduation, my wedding day with Michael, and now, a family photo from last Christmas. Even Victoria is smiling in that one. They remind me that true wealth isn't measured in dollars or status or family names. It's measured in the lives you touch, the changes you make, and yes, sometimes in the satisfaction of proving everyone wrong about who you really are.